Marco Cummings writes about the Colorado Rapids for MLS.com. Marco, how are you, man?
Good. How are you guys?
Come on, squeeze in here a little bit.
By the way, well,
Yeah,
I like that combination there. That's you win the fashion prize today.
It's not like you had any competition, though.
You win as opposed to you win as opposed to the Rapids, who tend to draw a lot.
Yeah, they do.
What is up with all the draws?
I think it's a product of the system that Pablo Mastroeni is trying to implement. A very defensive system. They're not scoring a lot of goals. They're actually letting in the least amount of goals in the league. They have the best defense, but they also have the worst offense.
Are they too conservative? Is the offense too conservative?
They need to start getting something going here. That's really, especially now it's mid-season, they need to start getting wins if they want to keep pace in this playoff race.
You can't 1 point every time, but Marco, I always refer to this. They remind me of Italy, and I don't mean the country. I mean it's the Italian team,
the World Cup
competes in the World Cup. That their whole idea is let's just fight you to a draw all the time. That if that's a passive, not aggressive thing, they bring in two strikers, and they're not really adjusting to what they should be doing yet to figure out how they can become more offensive.
Well, that's really the challenge the Rapids have kind of faced. Is it's really an adjustment for foreign players coming to this league to get adjusted, especially here at altitude. Yeah, Kevin Doyle, it was their big signing this season, and he's coming from Ireland, which is pretty much sea level, and he's also coming from the Premier League, played a full season there, and he was a substitute most of the season, so he hasn't had a full 90-minute fitness at sea level, so he's kind of acclimating to Denver still.
In the Rapids last game, we saw both Dylan Cerna and Shane O'Neill on the pitch. Should we expect to see more of them? I hope it's a leading question, or was that a one-game experiment?
Well, you and I have gotten in some Twitter battles before over Pablo Mastroeni and his coaching style.
You didn't hashtag
yeah.
Kiszla big ass or anything.
Could be. So hashtag you know nothing about soccer.
His thing is he really values the veteran players. So
right.
it's been really hard for those two to crack the lineup. Cerna's made the most of his minutes, in my opinion. We saw against Dallas, he had the equalizer, and the Open Cup game, he had 2 goals and assists. So if he keeps up that kind of production, you'd be hard-pressed not to see him in the lineup. And I expect him to play tomorrow against Sporting Kansas City.
Okay, this is not an argumentative question. This is a tell me why question. If you are last place in your conference, why would you not be developing your young players? Is it just stubborn insistence on that's the way Pablo wants to see? I mean, if they're 30 and you're not getting results, why would you not bring along younger players?
Well, at this point, they're still in the playoff race. They're 3 games out. So I guess if you're in that position, you probably still want to be stubborn in your ways. Maybe if they're starting to drop out of the playoff race more, maybe we'll have to see more of that.
Well, and follow up on that, I know he has an incredible legacy here and is very popular, but we talk about Walt Weiss, who has a history here of whether he should be fired or
Weiss,
not. Yeah, that, what did I say?
You said Weiss.
Oh, okay, Walt Weiss. How many Weisses are there coaching in Denver? That we talked about Brian Shaw. We have talked about John Fox in the past. Is Pablo Teflon? I mean, is in the soccer community, people are saying if he's depending on veteran talent and they're not very good and they're drawing all the time, and this is his philosophy, is he in any trouble?
And this has gone back to last year. I mean, halfway through last year as well.
Yeah, I think the club has a lot of faith in Pablo, just because he is a local legend. He gave his, as he'll tell you, his blood, sweat, and tears for the club. So it's kind of the same situation as Walt Weiss. Brian Shaw is a little bit different situation. He wasn't a local guy.
So he's going to get a
weren't as
longer
forgiving.
leash because of what he accomplished.
If it was Chauncey with the same record as Brian Shaw, he'd probably be he'd probably have a job.
Yeah, we're more forgiving of the Patrick Waghs and the Walt Weisses and guys we're familiar with.
That's an excellent
we've loved
point.
Through the years.
If Pablo had no history here, I think the club would have to admit that it was a mistake and that the offense doesn't work with this guy on the running the show. But because
is that right?
He's a great,
I'd ask the two of you. Is that right that you say, "Oh, he's one of us, so we don't want to, we don't want to fire him or ask him to resign or anything"?
Pablo's my favorite player in Rapids history, and I actually have paid attention to the Rapids for a long, long time. So, if I think of my head, I'd say, you know what? This offense doesn't work. He shows no creativity. He's too stubborn with his veteran players. He's not developing young players. There's the door. But because I do feel affinity for him, let alone the club, I say give him more time, at least the rest of this season.
Do you agree with him?
The other thing you got to consider is he was pretty much thrown to the fire. He has no assistant coaching experience. He basically got thrown into the head coaching job right after he retired from the league. Patrick Waugh had coaching experience in the lower levels. Walt Weiss had some coaching experience.
Into lower levels.
Lower levels. And his Pablo's predecessor, Oscar Perea, he had several years as an assistant, so he already had kind of that coaching.
So we're willing to get. You guys are saying, well, let's give him the rest of this year. Maybe
this is his second season. I couldn't fire him now. Okay. I couldn't do it.
Marco, how do people keep up with you on in the media world as he does in social media world?
I write stories and columns for MLSsoccer.com, so check out that website, and you can follow me on Twitter at Marco_Cummings.
And he does.
Appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for coming in.
He's Marco Cummings. This is Colorado Rapids Report, presented by the Celtic Tavern, the official sponsor of the Colorado Rapids. The Celtic provides a bus to every Rapids home game. You can party for 2 hours before kickoff. They'll do a tailgate party. And the Celtic is just a couple of blocks west of Coors Field on Blake Street. It's the Celtic Tavern. Let's